Hey guys, I quickly want to recommend another book. I just recently read The End of Men by Hanna Rosin, and I thought it was a great book. I think everybody should check out. The book wasn't too informative for me personally because about a year or so ago, I read a book called Manning Up by Kay Heimowitz, and the books are pretty similar. Really, the only difference that I can really think of is that Hanna Rosin's book has a little more current info. Manning Up, the book from that I read, I think it's in 2012. Obviously the data since the book was published a couple years back, the statistics and numbers and things like that, metrics were from a couple years ago. So even though that they saw that the Great Recession's over, it's been over for a while. A lot of people are still feeling the effects. So this book here, The End of Men, it has a little more up-to-date, and it's, a couple years outside of the so-called end of the Great Recession. Some of the things that the book goes to and talks about is about, the changing nature of gender relations, relationship statuses that go on now with people. For example, that a lot of women these days are going to have a lot more education than their male counterparts, and as well as that they're going to be making a lot more money. There's a chapter that talks about the education gap between men and women, and a lot of you may know, or that you may have heard of, that women in their 20s, they really get ahead and advanced of men of their age and of their peers, but then once they start, becoming mothers, they have what's called the, I can't think of the actual term right now, but, the term escapes me, but there's some kind of, I think it's called like the motherhood penalty or something like that, where once, they take a year, 2, 3, 4 years off, until their child gets into elementary school, they suffer their promotional status, their income, and all that stagnates or declines because they're not in the workforce as long as men. Men don't take off all those years. Some don't even take paternity leave, and so they continue on and keep rising up through their career. And so women and men in their 20s. Women are really outpacing them, and so, men, my gender, you gotta step up. You gotta step up to the plate. And so, another area that it talks about is the hookup culture, and about how, actually, slightly more, some of the women that they talk to, women don't want the relationships. These women in their 20s. Actually, it's men that are wanting the relationships, and there are some online dating site. They did a poll of their members, and it said more of the male members, a slightly higher percentage, wanted to have kids eventually than did the females on their website. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I guess they see all these like career-driven women now. They think that having kids and families is going to hamper their careers or their lives in some way, or put a drag. So that's kind of a bit new, and something I don't personally prefer. But and then another area that the book talks about is the new rise of female violence. Some of the cases it goes through is, this one, it's in the news now, but it wasn't when the book came out. Is we all know about this the Jodi Arias case. She supposedly was in love with her husband and all that, and then she's on trial right now for killing him. I think that they're in Arizona. It's either Arizona or Colorado, one of those states. But her name's Jodi Arias, and she's on trial for murdering her husband. So another case of violence that they talk about was it was Casey Anthony from a couple of years back. She murdered her kids, and just it goes through a whole number of cases like that, and it gives a comparison between male violence and female violence, which is pretty interesting. And it also includes the teenage girls that get in fights. A whole lot more teenage girls are getting in fights as opposed to the teenage guys out there in the middle schools and high schools. Another area I would say is what she describes as the seesaw marriage. What that is let's say that there's so there's a couple. Both of the male has a bachelor's degree, the female has a bachelor's degree. Well, what they have, the seesaw marriage is the person who would be on top is the one getting the income. Well, one of the spouses may go back to let's say that they go to medical school, and then the other spouse supports the other spouse while they're in school. And once that spouse gets done with medical school, then the other spouse would go to some other advanced school. So, for example, like they would go to law school or business school, something like that. So, and then the other spouse that was in medical school would be having the higher paycheck to support the couple. And so, pretty interesting change as opposed to, 50, 60 years ago, it would be, strictly the man getting all the money, as opposed to the woman ever having the higher paycheck. And so there's kind of this seesaw effect going on, and it's a highly new trend. And she says that it's really for the elites, and to transition from that chapter to another chapter, where there was a study case that goes back to a town in Alabama, and maybe this was a big time factory town, and the factory closed. Well, all these guys who worked in the factory, they had a whole lot of problems getting new careers, and as opposed to the women that were working in the factory, they didn't. In fact, some of the women who got retrained and found new careers, they were able to go on and get new careers and higher paying jobs than they had before. And so when one of the male supervisors at the factory before, he was just stunned, and he thought, he told the author, Hanna, Rosin, when she interviewed him, he's like, oh, well, I think that women have better transferable skills than men do. And so that's something that I really took away from the book. And actually, I kind of knew this a little bit before the book, but it was just great to see this actually in print, and that was really thought through by the author. So, anyways, I really encourage you to check out the book, The End of Men by Hanna Rosin. If you have a book you want me to read and check out, please let me know. Other than that,